Hey, Recreators, this is Nick, and you're listening to the Life Recreated podcast. It's a show that dives into learning, healing, and growing in mind, body, and spirit. And each week we tackle the difficult conversations so that we can learn how to fully walk in the freedom as a new creation. So if you're ready to learn, let's dive in. All right, welcome back to the Life Recreated channel. My name is Nick. So glad that you're here with me, joining in, checking in on this video. Listen, on this channel, we're all about learning, healing, and growing in all different aspects of life, man. So if you're here for the first time, good for you to check in. I want to jump into today's show and today's video right off the bat. This is something I talked about on my last video, the things that we need to do or the process that we can go through in order to find validation within ourselves, meaning that we don't have to look a lot of times towards the outside to try and find that validation, but learn how to build that within ourselves. And so on today's topic, I want to talk about like the second part of that, like finding that validation, but then taking it a step further and really just cultivating and rebuilding that self-worth within us. One of the things that I experienced and that I personally went through and kind of dealt with and wrestled with after we left. If you check out some other videos, I talk about us leaving the church and some of the issues and some of the things that we dealt with in that experience. But one of the things that I noticed that I dealt with afterwards and after the fact was this struggle with self-worth, really kind of going around or being in certain situations, being in certain circles and feeling like this imposter syndrome, where, you know, along the lines of feeling like, man, I'm not really maybe worthy to be here or worthy to experience what I'm experiencing. I feel like a lot of this comes from, and it can come from, the beliefs that we pick up a lot of times within these church environments, a lot of times on this outlook on what we or how God views us, right? God viewing us as sinners, God viewing us as worthless, God viewing us as the least of these, all these different things that we get taught and we get learned that this is the way that God really views us. And so the dilemma that I had was when we left that environment, being in a situation where I needed to find my self-worth, I needed to understand my self-worth. It was difficult because you come out of that environment and you think, based on what you were told, based on a lot of things that we learned and that we were taught, that once we left, we're in this kind of abyss and floating around and just all these horrible things are going to happen. Everything's going to unfold. Your whole life's going to fall apart. And so you really wrestle with a lot of these different things. And that can really mess up our self-worth. So what I want to just dive in today is the topic of how do I really begin to rebuild my self-worth? And this could be in any kind of circumstance. It could be in a circumstance of leaving. A lot of times we talk about spiritual abuse, what that looks like. So it could be in that context, or it could be in a context of just leaving a relationship in general. It could be in a context of just life in general. But really, I want to really focus on today, how do I learn how to rebuild self-worth? And I'm coming from an angle of the things that I experienced and I learned and how these things translated into me being able to develop that self-worth and being able to kind of walk in my correct self-worth, if you may. So first thing, let's just jump right into it. Number one, vulnerability is a strength. Vulnerability, if I could speak today, vulnerability is a strength. This was probably one of the hardest things for me to wrap my mind around in my whole healing journey, vulnerability. The reason why is because we come from, and I know I came from a background that really emphasized, really praised, really highlighted and put on a pedestal this issue or this mindset of being tough, being able to overcome everything, being able to handle everything, being able to take everything, being able to deal with everything. And so with that type of environment and that type of culture, what I learned was that when we're in those type of environments, it's oftentimes very hard for us to be vulnerable and tell people about situations or weaknesses that we may have or things that we may be struggling with or things that we may be wrestling with and going through. And so I learned through this whole healing process, and this is something I want to encourage you with, is that learning that your vulnerability and willing to be vulnerable is actually a strength. And here's what I mean by that. When I took a step back and said, you know what? I don't have to be strong. I don't necessarily have to be the toughest in the situation. It's okay for me not to be okay. I say that all the time, right? When I learned that last year, hey, there's times when we may be in a situation when we don't feel okay, and it's okay. And so I don't always have to be this perception or this kind of image or whatever the case may be of whatever society, whatever anybody around me has said that I need to be. When I was able to take a step back from that and say, you know what, I'm going to put myself in a space where I'm willing to be vulnerable. And what that meant was I'm willing to be in a space where I'll talk to people about what I'm going through. The reason I started a lot of these videos, sharing a lot of my story, was to put myself in a place where I'm vulnerable, right? To put myself in a place where I know, hey, if I'm transparent, if I'm open, if I'm willing to share with other people the things that I've experienced, the things that I've gone through, and how my mind handled those, how I handle those spiritually, how I handle it emotionally, whatever the case may be, maybe those stories can help somebody else. And so I realized that was a strength, right? It wasn't really a weakness. Me letting somebody know about the things that I was dealing with and the things that I was struggling with does not make me a weak person. It makes me somebody that's willing to be human and willing to connect with others, because this is what I learned. As I started doing a lot of those different things and being vulnerable, I started realizing that a lot of other people had the same story or something similar to what I was experiencing. And those people were able to help me to really work through this process, work through this healing, and be in a place where I'm able to progress, be in a place where I'm able to grow. And that's the strength that I think that comes from vulnerability, right? Just being able to just be yourself, being able to be in a place where you say, you know what, I'm going to share, I'm going to talk about the things that I've gone through, because I know that those things that I've gone through, even though they may be unhurtful, even though I might not understand all of why I went through all those things or why I was experiencing all those things, at the end of the day, me sharing my vulnerability is going to be that strength that maybe helps somebody else out. And so as I started developing that, I started to realize, look, the more that I'm opening myself up, the more that I'm sharing what I'm going through or things that I'm struggling with other people, the more they're saying, hey, I was going through the same thing. And it helped me to connect, and it helped me to reinforce and strengthen the fact that, you know what, sometimes God brings us through these things. We don't know why they happen, but at the end of the day, when we see the big picture play out, we can see what God was really doing in a lot of those things. So my first step is always, man, encourage just being vulnerable. Find people you trust, right? Which we're going to talk about. We're going to get into a little bit more on the second point on what really can help out in building our self-worth. But finding those people that you can trust, finding people that can relate to you, finding people that can understand what it is you're talking about, what it is that you're going through, man. And that is going to be a huge help, right? So the second thing is finding that community. This ties into what I was talking about with vulnerability. So as I'm able to be vulnerable with other people and really display that strength in myself based on what I've gone through and what I've experienced, this should help me to link and begin to build a lot of connections with community. The community is so important. My wife really helped me out with this tremendously, because I know when I was going through a lot of things and trying to figure out and process everything that I was going through and all the things that I was feeling, I know one of her big things that she always pushed was, Nick, you got to connect with people, man. Go out, go do something. Because if not, I'm really actually an introvert. I know I've learned this the last couple of years of my life, but I'm really an introvert, and I would rather just stay to myself, rather read a book, be somewhere off in a corner. And I started learning that a lot of times, especially when I was going through it, and especially when I was trying to figure out what it was that happened and what it was that I experienced, one of the things that I really realized was how dangerous it can be sometimes to put ourselves and isolate ourselves, because there's a difference between isolation and solitude. Solitude may be a time that I separate myself from everyone and the things and the distractions around me in order to get focused and get grounded and get centered. So there's the difference between that solitude, and then isolation is where I'm on purpose pushing people away, creating this space. But when I'm in those alone times, the thoughts that I'm having aren't really helping me. They're not building me up. They're not putting me in the right direction. They're leaving me in more of a dangerous situation because I'm in this dark place by myself. So there was a difference there. That solitude and that isolation is, my wife, like I said, she helped me to realize, look, I need community. I need to find people that I can connect with. I need to find people that I can talk to. I need to find people that I can help encourage, maybe share my story, or vice versa. They can share their story with me and I can understand, having compassion of what they're going through. And that community helped really to reaffirm and rebuild things in myself. Even though I may be struggling or I might be thinking about things a certain way or going through things a certain way or dealing with things a certain way, even though I might be going through those things, the possibility is that I'm able to have my value. I'm able to present my value to the world, present my value to everybody that I encounter. And the only way I'm going to really get that feedback is by being in a community. So I started reaching out, trying to do my best to connect, trying to do my best to learn, to hear other people's stories, to really feel and understand where people were coming from. And it really helped me to start developing that within myself and saying, you know what? Okay, I have something that I can bring to the table. I have something that I can offer to other people, and I have something that I can bring that may help this world in some kind of way. And so my second encouragement all the time is definitely find a community, find somewhere where you can link in, where you can plug in, where you can be encouraged, where you can be strengthened, where you can be rebuilt, where you can, whatever the case may be, find people that you can that understand, right? There's three things I always look for in a lot of things. And this has been one of the biggest things to me. Most of us walking around on the face of this earth, we want to be seen, we want to be heard as people, and we want to be understood as people. Seen, heard, and understood. And a lot of times that happens within our communities. When people are in the community with us that have gone through what we've gone through or experienced what we've experienced, and they understand, they see you, they hear what you're saying. They're like, yes. A lot of the reason why I'm talking about what we talk about is there's people out there that are experiencing these things and they're saying, man, I can't believe that this happened to me in the situation that I was in. And so when you hear it coming from somebody else and saying, hey, I've been there, I've experienced that, I've gone through that, I've lived through that, and this is how it is on the other side, that can give you some encouragement, and it can give you a sense of worth where you say, you know what, I can really contribute the overall good of everything that I'm trying to do. And that kind of brings me to this last point, right? This last point of lastly, just being somebody that can contribution. One of the big things that I've been really just focused on these last couple of weeks is next month I'll be turning 40 years old. And for me, that's a big thing. I remember, and I talked to my wife about this, talked to other people about it. But growing up, I didn't really think that I was going to make it this long. Growing up in some of the environments that we grew up in, growing up in some of the situations or things that we see, something in the back of your mind says, man, I see all these other young black men or all these other guys that look like me. And this is where they're ending up. They're ending up in a place where I really don't want to be. And so for me, what I really learned was as I was growing up, I started realizing, man, maybe I might not make it to this age. So I'm about to turn 40. And one of the things that I realized into going into this next season in life is I realized how important it is for me to be able to contribute back to everyone around me, everybody I interact with, everybody that I touch, everybody I talk to, everybody. How can I really contribute back? Because I realized something. Hey, I didn't think I was going to make it this far. So if God is letting me know, hey, man, you can make it this far, what says you can't make it another 40, 50 years? So why not live a life where I am able to contribute to the others around me based on the experiences that I've had and the things that I've faced, right? Those contributions are really is what going to build, they're going to build me up, because I know at the end of the day, when I close my eyes, I can say, you know what, if all else fails, I know that I took what I went through and the things that I experienced, and I was able to contribute that to somebody else and helping them make it through that same experience. And at the end of the day, money can't replace that. Nothing really can replace the fact of you being able to take what you've experienced and a thing that you've gone through, taking that, contributing that into somebody else's life so that it can help them make it through that same season that you've already faced. I feel like, to me personally, that's priceless. The key people that I've met in my life that were able to help me through those really dark, really difficult times were people that I knew that were saying, you know what, even though you're going through this, I'm going to take the time, I'm going to contribute, I'm going to put something back into you so that it can help you make it through this. And I think that's what people are looking for. We're looking for that in our self-worth. When we see all this craziness happening, think about it. We live in a world right now. I don't get into the politics. This is not me. That's not my forte. That's not my expertise. But I'm a very observant. I look and I see what's happening. I see what's happening in the day that we're living in. And there's a lot of guys and a lot of things that are happening in our life right now that people are really struggling with this issue. Like, how do I feel worthy? How do I contribute something to this world in a positive way? How do I contribute something in this world that when I close my eyes for the last time, they look back and they say, you know what, this person contributed and gave something good to the world. I feel like at the end of the day, when we can grasp that and really make that our focus, really make that something that we really hone on into, is God, whatever it is, whoever you pray to, could be God, could be whatever you believe. How do I just contribute based off of what I've experienced and what I've learned? How do I contribute? How do I put something good back into this world? I think if that's the forefront of where we're leading and how we're moving in this world, how can we lose at that? And so I think when we look and we think about these three different things, right? These three different things about being vulnerable, right? Being able to be transparent, being able to share our story, being able to let other people know this is what happened and this is what I experienced and this is how I made it through. That gives us a strength. When we tap into a community, when we say, you know what, I'm going to tap into men, women, other folks just like me that have gone through this, so I could just interact, so I can just be in there, so I can just get outside of my own mind. Because a lot of times when we get isolated, when we isolate ourselves, we're stuck in our head, we're stuck in our worries, we're stuck in the past, we're stuck in worrying about the future, we're stuck in all these different things. For the most part, let's be real. I know when I'm isolated, when I get in the shutdown mode, I am a lot of times worried about something in the past or fretting about something I did in the past or something that happened in the past. I'm worried about something that's about to happen in the future. And I'm robbing myself from the moment now that I'm able to contribute back. So when I make that community switch and I learn how to start getting back and just doing those different things, it can lead me to that last step of me learning how to contribute back into the world, learning how to give back into the world, learning how to give back into those around me, back into those that maybe have helped me. And that's where we're at. So those three things right there, man, just being vulnerable, tapping in the community, contributing back into the world. I think if we can focus on those three things, no matter what we've faced or what we've gone through, they'll help us. It may not fix the whole, I never say anything will fix the whole problem, but they can be something that can help us and that can definitely move us forward. So I'd love to hear from you, man. Drop a comment down below. Let me know, what are some things that helped you build your self-worth, rebuild that self-worth? Maybe you've gone through something where it destroyed how you look at yourself or how you view yourself, and you went through some steps to build yourself back up and build that self-worth. What'd you do? Drop it down in the comments. I want to know. And then stay tuned, man. We got some good things coming up, man. I'm about to launch some things that I'm working with that I think will definitely help. Starting this channel, talking about the topics that we've been talking about and the things that we've been definitely talking about have really helped me to understand, how important it is in the day that we're living to really talk about a lot of these things, to really address a lot of these things, especially in our generation, right? I'm a millennial. Like I said, I'll be 40 next year. We need to tap into these things so that we can learn how to learn, so we can learn how to heal, so we can learn how to grow from these different things, so that we can not pass these things down to our generations that are coming, right? That's our responsibility. That's our goal. Let me know in the comments down below what you think about this. Hey, if this is your first time, do me a favor, like, share, subscribe, do all of that good stuff, and keep those different things in mind, man. Working on our self-worth, working on how to rebuild those things in our life. And I'd love to hear from you, man. So drop a comment down below. So until next time, this is Nick, Life Recreated channel. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.